Today we're going to compare and contrast a fully digital Scott and the Brave with one captured on a MIDI electronic bagpipe. Stay tuned. Well, hello, I'm Matt Willis Bagpiper, and on this channel I make videos to make you a stronger and more confident piper. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, commenting below with any thoughts you might have, sharing this with any pipers in your life. But for now, let's get on with the video. So what you just listened to was never actually played. I dragged and dropped all of those notes in Logic on their piano roll and adjusted the timing of the notes until I felt they sounded and felt like real bagpipe embellishments, and they had the nuance of the pipes. I tried a lot of things. What I ended up with was that the grace notes, the individual small grace notes you saw, ended up being a triplet 64th note. It's pretty small. It ends up being a 24th of the beat. The sounding tones, which are the longer grace notes in that, the two G's in a taralua or a grip, or the C in the middle of a C doubling, those end up being a triplet 32nd note or 1/12th of the beat. I found that the G grace note tended to be just before the beat, landing me on the beat in, say, a C doubling, and then the rest of the embellishment would go after, whereas a grip or a taralua tended to more or less end on the beat. But the grips in particular, in a few places, especially the A grip to B, I felt sounded better with the low G, the second low G, actually subtracting from the B after rather than the whole thing from before. So it was a pretty neat experiment for me to see if I could make a fully digital representation, recreation of bagpipe music. And I think I got pretty close with this. I think that's as close as I'm going to be able to get with the tools I have and the voices I have in the MIDI. So the next step is going to be capturing real MIDI data from my own fingers on a set of Red Pipes Caledonia. After I capture that, we're going to compare and contrast and take a look at how a real piper playing a tune compares with a digital perfect version of the same melody. All right, guys, we're going to be capturing some MIDI data using the Red Pipes Classic here, Apple's Logic, and the sound you're going to be hearing is the Highland Bagpipe Ensemble. It's not the greatest sound, but the more realistic bagpipe sounds I have are, to be honest, a bit fragile. They tend to not save and kind of crash Logic. So while we're capturing the data, we're going to use this built-in good enough sound. All right, we're going to be playing Scott and the Brave. We got the metronome set at 96 right here. I'm going to do some recording, and let's see how this all works out. I think it's a pretty good take. Let's go ahead and stop this. All right, so this is the MIDI data that we just captured from the Scott and the Brave. Let's go ahead and kind of take a look at the general data here. So we can see there's kind of two lengths of grace note. We're going to actually blow this up just a little bit more. So here we have like the E, G grace note down to the low A, and here's our taralua. And I want you to look at the taralua right here. Notice we have two low Gs that are longer than the D grace note or the E grace note. I call these in an embellishment sounding tones. The sounding tones are the notes in an embellishment that you hear that aren't grace notes. They're written like grace notes in the embellishment. They're not played like grace notes. So in a taralua, you go down to a real low G, happens to be quick, Then you do a D grace note separating you to the second low G, and then an E grace note taking you into that final A there. So, and then we can come over here. Here's the E, the A, B. Here's our C doubling, and again in the C doubling, we can clearly see the sounding tone. You have your G grace note, which might be just a little bit fatter than this E grace note over here, but again, I'm not actually a machine. And so you got the G grace note to the C sounding tone in the C doubling, the note in the middle of the C that makes it a doubling, and then the D grace note separating the C into a doubling, E grace note back down to A. Then we have our next doubling right here, C doubling up to E. And here we have our first high A doubling. And again, the sounding tone in a high A doubling is that initial A, then you get that G grace note sweep of the thumb, another sweep of the thumb here, that second one a little quicker. And then we have the grip, and the grip similar to the Taralua. You can see it's got two low G sounding tones with the D grace note separating them, that note clearly being a little smaller than the low G's in the grip. Another C doubling, E grace note down. And then here, this is the guy I really wanted to point out because I've had some people from my heavy D throw video talk about, like, I'm not sure about that idea of a crossing noise in the D throw. Well, here, you might not see a crossing noise, but this second low G is definitely not as long as the first. If we go back to the grip, and we'll play this all back, you can see that these are nice and even in the grip. And over here, that low G is a little bit shorter than this one. It's the first D throw of the tune. We'll see if I get them any shorter in the rest of them. So there's our D throw, low G, D grace note crossing noise C, lift to D, G grace note to the F there, down to the C doubling. It's looking good. There's the sounding tones, the other grace notes. This C doubling, it's a little out of whack. You can see that my G grace note and D grace note actually are a little bit heavier weighted, longer, if you will, than that C. So I was a little open in my finger work on the way down. Again, not actually a computer here. E grace note down to the A. And then we have our grip to B. Again, you can see nice even two low G's here. C doubling, or excuse me, E doubling. We have our E doubling here, the tap to low A. And then we have our nice run. Beat up, beat up, beat up. It's all looking pretty good. We got another Taralua here. To pretty even. That second low G, maybe just a touch short, but the grace note's still nice and chirpy. I like that. Up to the C doubling. See our sounding tone here. E grace note down. That's more the size of the grace note I like seeing here. We come over to the next A doubling in line 2. The thumb motions are a little bit more heavy-handed. I took a little bit more time. Come over here. The grip's looking good. Yeah, two big low G's. And then over here, this D throw. So we have our C doubling taking us down. E grace note down. D throw. And here you can see really that the second low G in the D throw is noticeably shorter than the first, and that's what we're looking for. This looks a little bit more like what I'm wanting. There we go. We got our C doubling. Oh man, look at that G grace note taking me down into the second C. Ta-da bum, yada dum. So I could push that E a little bit more, crisping up that grace note. That's a little out of whack. That's all right. Again, not a computer. This grip pretty good. A little shorter on the second low G than the last time. And then finally into the end of the tune. You got your low G grace note here. And I think I'd actually like to see that a little bit longer if I could. I like to think of that more like kind of a sounding tone. Now we're going to make this a little smaller so we can kind of take a listen back to everything we've now just talked about. The drones have been deleted from this, so it's a little easier to hear. And just for giggles, I'm going to get rid of this first little that you probably heard when I started. And shorten this note. It's a neat thing about MIDI data. We can just start right here, and we'll take a listen. Now that's the D throw I want. We're going to keep going. Pretty good so far. It's doubling looks good. Pretty big G grace note right there. Oh, it had a glitch of some sort, looks like right there. So this thing does occasionally glitch out. There's a bit of a missed bit of information right there. And play it back from there. All right, that's pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is take a completely digital version that I just kind of programmed in, and we're going to compare and contrast my actual captured Scotland the Brave from my own fingers with a full MIDI version that was never played by a person, and we're going to compare and contrast how an actual piper plays versus how theoretically it should grace notes. So this is Scotland the Brave again, having never been played by a person. We're going to go ahead and solo it up and listen to it in a second, but I did want to take a look at it. So you can see the grace notes and the sounding tones, different sizes. If anything, the grace notes might be a little bigger here than some of the ones I captured. We'll take a look directly compared. And you notice you can make out some different colors. I don't know if it's coming through on the camera. For this, I actually have changed the velocity or volumes of the notes so that the low notes are louder than the top notes. Most MIDI bagpipes send the data at one volume, but if you've played the pipes at all, you know that the low notes are louder than the top notes. So I think we get the idea of how this is sounding. Now let's go back up to this other version of Scotland the Brave, and let's see if we can't compare and contrast. So I'm going to bring up both of these at the same time so we can see the information together. I'm going to make this smaller. They're in different octaves right now, so we can really kind of see the digital information. So here we have my Tarlua. So my Tarlua, I tend to spend a little bit more time on my low Gs than the digital version here. But the other stuff's lining up pretty good. C doubling. So you can see I'm actually pushing my C doubling just a little bit later, probably trying to really feel and push that note. If you look at these A's, this is mathematically 3/4 of the beat, but I'm kind of wanting to hold it as long as possible to really get that feeling, because remember, we don't have volume control. So I'm holding it a little bit longer than 3/4 of a beat, nearly double dotted, but not quite, up to my B. But to make sure I still have a B, I can see that my C doubling is actually just on that side of the beat rather than the G grace note taking me down smartly on the beat. But the E grace note looks like I'm landing well. The next C doubling is nice and controlled. So the grip looks pretty good right here. This all looks pretty smart over here. I'm pretty pleased with how these are lining up and looking. Okay, so yes, I'm the one that's all in green. So if we look here, I'm heading in to that first A doubling early. I'm not taking it on the beat. I'm actually kind of sweeping my thumb on the beat. So that's something for me to work on. Got a bit confused. So remember, the top information is the digital fully rendered version. The bottom is me. So the D throw, my D throw looks pretty good compared to that one. I like this. It's lining up pretty good. We're going to play these side by side here and take a listen. So we're going to go ahead and play these back and see how unison the sound might be between these two. Let's take a listen. Now here, I've gone ahead and overlapped the two takes. You can maybe see the color, maybe not. I'll try my best to point it out. I think you should be able to see the mouse on this one. So we have our intro E, the G grace note taking us down to the A. That all is very well aligned. We get down here, the low G's and the Tarlua look pretty good. We can see here, the E's taking us back up. There is actually just a tiny break between them. My playing is the slightly later one. There's the digital perfect one. The D grace note's not quite aligned either, but very close. But as we heard in the playback, this didn't really make much of a sonic difference between the two. That was really close. If we look here, we can see these two grace notes definitely aren't quite aligned. The perfect one from the program is actually just a bit earlier, and over here, the D grace note also from the program is earlier. So I've just gone ahead and pushed the whole embellishment over. We can see here I was well early on the A and a little early on this sweep as well. Man, I'm really happy. That grip right there, they are completely aligned. There's really no overlap. So I got that grip right where I want it to be. If we look over here at the D throw, very similar, not quite the same, but very similar in how it's So yeah, so this is just kind of neat to go through and take a look and compare and contrast exactly where I'm matching up with the digital version and where I'm not. And overall, I'm pretty happy. I can see here, this is the second grip on high A. It's not quite as clean and together, but is it really audible? Let's listen. So we'll start again from the top over here, and we'll take a listen to them together. Let's slow it down. Let's take it down to, I don't know, 50. So that was listening to the two at the same time at 50 beats per minute. And you could really kind of hear the push and pull around the embellishments. Now, when I recorded the captured data on the MIDI thing, I just had a click in my ears. I was not, it wasn't even in my ears, it was in the room. I wasn't playing along with the other track. I wanted to see how much they might just sync up on their own between perfect and how I felt the tune just with the metronome. All right, now we're going to play it again at full speed, but we're going to jump back and forth between me playing it with the captured data on that red pipe and the perfect version that I programmed. And it should hopefully be seamless. And I'm going to put a poll up here, and I want you to vote and tell me which one you like better, my interpretation of Scott and the Brave or the perfect version that I figured out. I want to find out. I'd love it, again, if you vote to let me know which of the two you might have preferred, if you even heard a difference. Maybe I'll put a third option on there like can't tell. In any case, guys, in the description below, there's going to be a PDF download of this version of Scott and the Brave. It's pretty standard. There's nothing particularly special about it, but so that if you want to play along with this one, you can. I'm also going to put up MP3s at both a slow and a normal speed, so if you found these useful, you can practice along. And these MP3s are going to be just the perfect digital version that I programmed in with everything exactly where it should be. I thought folks might find that useful to play along with. All right, guys, I hope you found that helpful. So a couple maybe new ways to think about bagpipe music, embellishments, grace notes, sounding tones, which could be a whole new principle. I at least like having a name for that part of an embellishment that is not quite a grace note, not quite a real note. If you found this useful, please give it a like, maybe subscribe to the channel, maybe even head over to my Patreon where a small monthly donation can go a long way to helping me continue making videos like this. And I hope this is the first in a long series of digital breakdowns because I think it could be very useful to see where all the little bits lie and exactly how long and short we have between certain notes, embellishments, and what have you. I'm Matt Willis, and again, until next time, cheers.